in his book, one of the things he highlights, he says in Jewish tradition, love is sort of a reciprocal relationship with obedience. And he highlights one story that really was provoking to me. He highlighted a story in Jewish tradition that's commenting on a passage in Jeremiah. And the passage, you'd skip over this if it wasn't for the commentary. It says, because you have turned away from me and you have stopped keeping my Torah. You're like, okay, you just pass on, they're being bad. You're right.
Yeah.
But the rabbis lingered and said, the reason the rabbis did this often is they would say, the reason he said two different things, you've forsaken me and you've left my Torah, is because what he's saying is, that even if you had forsaken me, you would have kept keeping my Torah. And that just sounds so backwards, right? You've forsaken God, but you're still going to keep the Torah. But the commentary then says, because obedience to the Torah is the starter dough that leads to a heart that loves obedience.
Oh,
I thought, whoa, that's true. There is a reciprocal relationship with obedience and love. And so that led me to start exploring like some of the teachings of Jesus, like in Matthew 6 and his teachings on dealing with finances and generosity, for example. One of the interesting things he says is, don't store up for yourselves treasures here, and he's talking about giving, being generous, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. And the reason is because where your treasure is, there your heart will be. So the mechanism is that I commit to, and so I live in the way that Jesus is instructing. And what it does is it actually causes my heart to love, not heaven, but love the coming of the Messiah when his reward comes with him. And so I can feel indifferent today about the Messiah and about his coming because things are just going so great. But if you have stored up a reward there that's greater than this one, it will cause your heart to love his coming. Yeah. It's like, wow, that is really interesting. And so I think that thinking actually goes throughout the teachings of Yeshua. And I found it in a number of places. And I go, this actually helps significantly because it helps me understand sometimes when you get into those fickle patterns and you go through the ups and downs, and the wisdom of staying steady in the ups and downs is not just because it's going to be a downer your whole life and you just got to learn how to, because I think the Lord knows that emotions are intended to motivate. And even if we're not always on a mountaintop experience in terms of our emotions, as we learn to stay steady as disciples, following and obeying Jesus, the Lord knows that will actually stir up love in our hearts for the things that God cares about.
Yeah.
Much like if you know anyone who's highly invested in Bitcoin, right now they're really, really watching the market because they got a lot in it and it just hit like a record high, didn't it, recently? And so if you have a lot invested, because essentially Jesus' teachings, living that way, whether you're, giving up reputation or money or retribution or whatever it is you're giving up, you got a lot coming when the Messiah comes.
Yeah.
And so it causes your heart to love his coming and to love the things that he cares about more. So